Back to this Highways Act 1980 again. Enables the authority to remove signs or affix to trees, structures, and the works of highways, or any of the 19 Act enables the council to remove or obliterate any placard or poster displayed. Well, yeah, displayed if it's displayed illegally. Any placard or poster displayed before this power can be exercised. Subsection 3 and 5 require advance written notice to be given to anyone who can be identified as the person recognisable for the display. You see, the thing is, with that 1980 Act, it's saying it's claiming that the authorities or the highways can remove whatever they want if they want to. Well, that means they could remove all of it if they wanted to. Doesn't say they can charge you for an offence though. But I'll go to the Act in a minute. Part 1 Highways Act 1980, Part 1. Unauthorised. Oh, it says unauthorised. Part 2 Highways Act 1980, unauthorised marks on highway. Well, you've got authorisation. Well, so you're getting consent from the Lord spiritual and temporal. So it's called unauthorised. A person who, without either consent of the highway authority or the highway in question, or an authorisation given by, or under an enactment, or a reasonable excuse. Well, I'm not using reasonable excuse. Reasonable and excuse is if you're not using. You see, this is what they're charging Angela Ditchfield with. This reasonable excuse. You know, they're going all into that reasonable excuse, but they don't want to admit that she's using an enactment, and they don't want to even run it through the town and country planning where everything is there laid out. This is an advertisement. This is a certain class of it. What is the purpose of it for? They're not even entertaining any of those ideas. They're almost ignoring it as it doesn't exist. Oh, that's criminal damage. Well, no, what defining what damage is? Well, we'll define what damage isn't, because an advertisement is defined as an advertisement. So therefore it's not damage, is it? Because it is something that is dealt with in an act. The damage is, is definitely defined as something that, the word pain doesn't even appear in the Criminal Damage Act. When it defined damage in the Act, well, we define what an advertisement is. That ain't definitely in the Criminal Damage Act. And where it is defined, that we know that it's when it is defined and it is given use and consent, then it's catered for. And the word pain appears specifically in a specific section in a specific act, and it's not damage. So if you've got a license, if you're in the Criminal Damage Act, if you've got a license to conjure up what you want, that is not defined. Well, I don't care what's defined in the Criminal Damage Act, what is or isn't. But when something is defined in another act, then it's definitely that is the act that is defined in. So you might as well say, if the Criminal Damage Act doesn't define what damage is, you might as well just go through the entire legislation of the country and just start saying, no, that's damage, that's damage, that's damage. Oh, look, someone's polishing, someone's someone's buying a hat. Oh, that's criminal damage, No, it's actually not. It's consumer rights and trading standards. Oh, we'll have that one in there. We'll have everything. Anything in. I picked a nose hair. That's criminal damage. Damage is not defined in the act. Well, God help us. But it doesn't matter, because it's actually saying, unless it's given an enactment, any picture, letter, sign, other mark. So they knew when I got arrested that I was using an enactment, because I got the enactment on there, right to petition. So they knew very well, and they just ignored it, even though it said all prosecutions are illegal. Just absolute complete disregard for the law, the police. Guilty of an offence, liable to a fine not exceeding level 4. Oh, it's a fine. So if you put the thing is, this is the part they got out with me. This is liable to a fine, unauthorised mark, but they said they were prosecuting with criminal damages. But unauthorised mark is only a fine. You can't get community service or anything like that for it. It says only liable to a fine. So you try to get criminal damage and you get a higher. The thing with my conviction is there's a sheet and they're listed out, because I had that argument with Alan White and they put in intent to cause distress or whatever. And then there was a few other things like stopped at the side of the highway at one point to get some information and data. And other things, but it's all covered under my investigation work. Highway authority for a highway may, without prejudice to their powers, apart from this subsection, and whether or not proceedings in respect of the matter have been taken in pursuance of section 1 or above, remove any picture, letter, sign, or remark which has, without either the consent of the authority or authorization given by or under an enactment. Well, we're using an enactment. That's the whole point. That's what he's being used through. It's exactly what's being used through the statutory instrument. Through F is where you use your enactment. It's being painted or otherwise inscribed or affixed upon the surface of the highway. So that means you can even put over the top of the motorway bridges if you want for a petition campaign lawfully, because they've got all manner of adverts at the side of the motorways and highways anyway. In fields, people putting advertisements. The police just are reckless that they know that you're using an enactment and they're blatantly ignoring it, which is perverting the course of justice. It's not just abuse of process. It's not just illegal prosecution. It's actually perverting the course of justice, which is a very serious crime, because they know what the law is and they are blatantly ignoring the law on purpose because they don't want to acknowledge it. They believe they're above the law. And I think that applies to HS2 as well, when they were trying to protect those trees, those protesters. And I think that Boris Johnson went and got the police hired the police to take sides with the contractors, and they prevented them from protecting the trees when they got a case to save them, and were pursuing a case to save them. Here's the actual act. The word affix appears 7 times. Notice is to be given before the exercise of powers. The council shall publish a notice on this section by affixing it in a conspicuous position at or near the place to which the proposal relates. Well, that may be along the side of the highway. You're serving a copy of the notice. Well, this is service of notice, isn't it? Which is why I was doing my petition, serving a notice to the public who use the roads that the signage hasn't been put out lawfully, and getting in the public interest support to make them do something about it, because the police didn't want to do anything about it. You definitely can't remove a notice at the side of the road when it's legal notice for proceedings. This is it. This is it. 132. It's called unauthorized marks on the highways, but when you're using an enactment, you get authorized. That's where you get your authorization from the law, from political rights. A person who, without either the consent of the highways authority for the highway in question, or an authorization given by or under an enactment. Surprise, surprise. Or separately, differently, a reasonable excuse. Well, this is the thing with Angela Ditchfield. They're just going on about reasonable excuse. That's what they've got on her prosecution documents, reasonable excuse. Why are they blanking this enactment? Authorization given by enactment. We know what authorization is. It tells you in the Town and Country Planning Act under Class F by the use of an enactment. Oh, surprise, surprise. And what sections does it exempt you from? Both of the consent sections, because that's where you get authorization from, consent. You get the law, that enactment gives the authorization. Picture, letter, sign. Yeah, this is what they pulled out in the police station. But should be liable to a fine. But not you don't get. Angela Ditchfield did actually get fined. He didn't think he'd get community service or anything like that. I don't know how they ended up getting me on that community service course. But with that Alan White argument, which is apparently intent to. Well, they said affray, and then they changed it to intent to cause distress or whatever. When actually I was pursuing the theft of the notices and, the investigating the illegal road signage anyway, namely Alan White, who cannot obstruct me or get in the way. The Highways Authority for a highway may, without prejudice to their powers, apart from this subsection, and whether or not proceedings in respect of the matter, without prejudice to their powers, apart from this subsection, and whether or not the proceedings in respect of the matter have been taken in pursuance of subsection 1, exactly above, remove, so without the consent of the authority, without the consent of the authority or an authorization given by or under enactment, remove any picture, sign, or other mark which has, without either consent of the authority or... Yeah, but only if it hasn't had authorization. If you haven't got consent, if you haven't got deemed or expressed consent or authorization, which is given by the enactment, which is the one thing that they blatantly seem to be... It's like the Emperor's New Clothes, like invisible every time. They're doing it with Angela Ditchfield, they're doing it with Gail Bradbrook, they're doing it with all of us. They don't want to mention... All they keep going on about all the time is this... they're obsessed with the Human Rights Act. They won't even say 1688 Bill of Rights, right to petition. In fact, my case is the only case that mentioned it when I was in Leicester, when I got my special case booked, because she actually mentioned it. But it should be obvious. It's obvious when you're doing when it's political. That's what it is. Delivering to some responsible person residing or appearing to be resident, fixing a copy of it to some conspicuous part of the premises. Service, alright, they've got service of notices in the Highways Act as well. Any notice, consent, approval, order, demand, licence, certificate, or other document required or authorised by or under this Act to be given or served on a corporation is duly given or served if it is given or served for a second corporation. Demand, licence, certificate, or a document. Attaching it to a conspicuous part of the premises. See, you're required to be honest, when you're actually petitioning the public, what do you need to do? You're required to give them notice. So you're actually required. The thing is, when you're petitioning the whole public, right, you're required to serve them a notice to all of them. And on here, this is the thing. This is gonna seal it really, because here it says, look, I know that this is for service of notices for the requiring under this act for the consent of a corporation, but generally it's the same principle of law underlying, which is that when you're petitioning the public, right, not only can you knock on the door and post it through the letterbox or ask them in person or publish it in a newspaper, look, it's like when you get delivered a court letter or get delivered anything, you know, it's got to be delivered to your premises, or even when they stick a parking ticket on your car, the service of notices. And it's that sticking of the parking ticket on the car window they're doing because they're the authorities, it's an official document. When you're petitioning the government and you're getting signatures from them, you know, because you want the law made or changing, in the case of Parliament, Palace of Westminster, it's a case, you've got the right to serve notice to each and every person. As the authorities, you got the same right as the authorities and the council do to serve notices, because all parties have to be on an equal footing in proceedings. That's why we've got these overriding objectives in civil proceedings, make sure all parties are on an equal footing. If you haven't got the right to serve notices like the council authorities, how you're on an equal footing with them? Anything that the council can do, put notices up, you know, and so forth, you've got to be able to do if you want to oppose them on anything, to have an equal footing, equal and fair footing. This is the whole point of it. Can be delivered by affixing a copy of it to some conspicuous part of the premises. So, we're going to paint it on the side of it. If it's Class F, if you want to, then you're using an enactment. Or you can, you know, post it through the letterbox if you want to post a letter. You know, or well, you know, and there's 100 people in the building, you paint it on the side of it to make sure they all see it when they walk past. That's what the law is. He says Class C exists, and you can mix those classes. You can have Class C, E, and F together. You know, now I won't go around painting everyone's car. You know, you could theoretically get some of those identical things to what a parking warden have got. You know, and like print some notes out and put them in those little pouches and put them on. I mean, surely they don't do any harm, or the traffic warden wouldn't use them. You know, that's an example. I mean, it wouldn't go as far as painting a car, but some people would say it would go as far as painting a building. But this is what they're arguing in the court, you know. They're wanting to argue it under the Criminal Damage Act, whether it's, you know, their actions are reasonable, proportionate, and so forth. But there's no such argument. The problem is that there are you've got these legal methods, and that right gives you consent to use whichever method you want, and it doesn't say who decides that, you know, because at the end of the day, when the council are going to do anything, they choose whether they want to print some flyers, or whether they want to put a wooden sign up, or whether they want to do this or that. They choose. Or if they want to paint it on the side of one of their own council buildings, well, our council buildings, it's our council, taxpayer, that's it. And some of these things are a little bit kind of extreme, but they're there, options. And really, you've got the consent to choose the options, but it's kind of like proving, you know, they don't really like it. Tough. I mean, you could say that we don't really like all these commercial adverts around, you know, that are all paid for, you know, chocolate bars advertised everywhere, and then now popping up on us phones, we can't block them. They don't want to allow us a legal right that has a proper procedure and categories and classification in law that we can pick and choose what we want out of the options available, right? Why? Oh, because it's going to, you know, inconvenience another party. But we have to put up with all their bombardment of adverts, and now popping up on your mobile phones, on every website you go on, spam, Google taking over the planet. It's pissing a lot of people off. And that's all money. It's like they pay for the privilege to be able to infiltrate your advertisements because they're paying. They're paying. You accept, consent. Do you accept these terms and conditions on this new app, or you can't use it? Well, I have to accept the terms and conditions. Well, the fact with these corporations and companies, these multi-million, billion, trillion-dollar companies is, do you consent to living in England, opening a business under Companies House, and having a business in England where the law is that people have political rights? And it turns out that we can go and Angela Ditchfield can paint that on the side of a building. Now, if Larry Fink and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk don't like it, go move Twitter headquarters to Taiwan. Go move Twitter headquarters to Malaysia. Go move Coutts Bank or BP or Shell to Shanghai or Australia. In this country, we, the people, can do it. And tough. That's it, as it is. And all this money they've got, the failure of these big companies is they think that money can buy them anything, buy them the world. But it can't. Because we're meant to be living in something called a democracy where people, individuals have rights to vote, do this and that, and have an opinion which is special, separate and non-commercial and is superior to commerce and business sector, which are only allowed to exist through Companies House. And that's the problem. And what they're doing now is, David Cameron sold off a lot of these companies were public owned, and he wanted it to be competitive, right? David Cameron wanted a bit of competition, a bit competitive. But, we've bought all the platforms, now booting us all off, or saying, they're taking over. What's competitive is this. This is competitive. How about David Cameron? So I would just going to the court and say, what were you going to, you say to the court, well, we're being competitive. Who are you competing with? Well, Shell, the businesses, the airport. Like David Cameron said, we're being competitive. We are being competitive. We're being politically competitive with them. They're being commercially competitive with us, seeing how much influence they can do to make us eat the food and the hot dogs and the buns. Who influence you, adverts, all paid for, money everywhere. Well, there's a bit of competition for them because we're playing a different game. But it doesn't matter how much money you have, it matters what rights we've got and what rights we're using, which we've got. And, this is the problem when people are climbing on their planes and stopping at the airport, or spraying it on the side of the building, or Gail Bradbrook smashing a bank window. We've had enough of these companies. This is it. And these rights have been there, and people are saying, why don't we use them? Well, there's a £50 note there. Well, there's a cheque from Larry Fink, £10 million. We could use that. Or why don't we just use the right to petition and do it for free? This is the thing. Written a bill out. We've written a bill. Bill Gates, the Bill of Rights. Show me the money. What is the value of this enactment? What is it worth? It's worth, we can put whatever notices we want, when we want, where we want, as long as it is calling for action from the government on a case for, getting laws made and changed. That's what the bill is worth. Write me a cheque. What can you do? What is the authority? What is the authorisation? If it's for that purpose and reason to advertise and promote these things, the cheque is written. The bill is enacted. The consent has given assent. And that is the bill. And this is the thing that Larry Fink doesn't understand. He's only got money because the Bank of England issued it and printed it, and it is lawful bill to use. What can I do with this bill? What has it got written on it? Well, it's the Bill of Rights, the right to petition. How much is the petition worth? What's the value of it? How many zeros has it got behind it? Doesn't matter, because it's the subject. The subject. Larry thinks money can only do how many zeros, whether he's got $5, $50, $500, $5,000, $5 billion, or whatever. What's the bill? What's it worth? It's worth whatever you can buy with it, right? Well, what's the Bill of Rights worth? Whatever you can do with it. That's what the worth is. And they're trying to con us out of these laws. That's the problem. And then the reason people are using these rights now is because of these companies using these bills, because what they've done is we work, they take bills off us, they take money off us. Buy this, buy that. Oh, it's it's I bought it for $5 from the importer, and I'm selling it for $50, and I'm making $45 a time. What's the bill? How many zeros am I making? I'm making money. Show me the bill. Show me the bill. I've got all these things I can do with this money. What can you do with that money? Whatever you want to do with it. What do you want to do with it? Buy an ice cream, buy a car, buy a yacht. The Bill of Rights. What do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with this Bill of Rights? What's it worth? What's the value of it? When you're not allowed to use it, they're not acknowledging it, it's worth nothing to anyone. Show what is the value of it. What it's worth is, the value is, I can put notices up for petitions wherever I want and whenever I want. That is value. That is what it's worth to me. And they don't want you to have the bill, the check written out. They want to have a guy called Bill Gates, who he's got a funny name, and he's a computer expert, and now he's a philanthropist. And he's the guy, I'm the bill guy, I'm the bill guy, I'm Bill Gates, I'm the bill guy. I've got the money, I've got the bits of paper with the bills written out with the zeros. I can do what I want with them, spend them what I want, right? We've all got the right to the bill to use it for what we want, regardless of money. And the only time you need money is if you want to, buy the materials, like the paint and so forth. Unless you're Roger Hallam, who walks into a supermarket and then goes and hands out food for free for Burning Pink Party as a political stunt, publicity stunt, whether you want to call that a representation. I don't know. Was he pretending to be Jesus, feeding the thousands? I'm not sure. This is it. But he ended up going to prison, didn't he, for that, for a short time. This is it. Well, what's it worth? And this is when we get value of bills, dollar money. What is money worth at the end of the day? What can you do with it? What is the law worth at the end of the day? What can you do with it, or what can't you do with it? Most of the time, the law is what you can't do. We're enacting laws. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's not worth anything to anyone. It is if somebody's going to punch you, because it's worth, it's worth a punch, because they're not allowed. So it saves you from getting punched. So it's worth, but that's not any monetary value. That's just value in, safety, respect. So you can issue notices to buildings, really. Secretary of State may, in particular, direct something to comply with notice shall be affixed to company. And 7. For the purpose of displaying a notice as required, paragraph 1 above, a highway authority may, on the highway of the adjoining wherever belonging to the authority, erect and maintain posts or boards, or affix a notice to any building Affix a notice to any building. Which makes you think, if they happen to not have any paper or anything, would they resort to spraying it on the building? What if there's a pen shortage or a paper shortage or something like that? Would they spray would the police spray it on the building if that's all they had it in a spray paint? And won't put it past them. Just occupy the land and affixing copies to notice on some conspicuous object. Which is exactly what I was doing when I was putting the notices out. A petition it's giving notice, that's for sure. Because that's what you do when you publish in the newspaper. You're giving notice to the public.